Sandy Smith has called for a town hall including members of the town's PTA and many other citizens.
I wish to thank all of you for coming out here for this special meeting. I assume you have all read the pamphlets explaining the purpose of this meeting, so let's get on with it. Our first speaker tonight is Carlos Hernandez, the principal of the town's high school.
Mr. Hernandez takes the podium, and in his hands is the math textbook he'd been reviewing over the past couple of weeks. My analysis of the math textbook used in the Christian Way Academies indicates that the lessons are adequate, mostly, but the book had over 100 Bible quotes and references in it, most of which do not refer to math concepts. This has the effect of making the book much longer than it needed to be. Next to take the podium was Carla Jenkins. She brings with her the English/literature textbook she was reviewing.
A decade ago, I might have been happy to use such a textbook, since I was a devout Christian back then, but now I can look at it more objectively. The book contains over 100 examples of various types of literature, including several stories taken straight from the Bible, and most of the authors are white. There is one black author, and he is American. There are no authors actually from Africa. Only 4 authors that come from East Asia and 2 from the Middle East. And all but 2 of the authors are Christian, the 2 exceptions being Jewish and from Israel. So quite simply, this book is racist in its content, and as a Native American, I do not recommend it for any school.
Mr. Wayne Bentley takes the podium next, with the history textbook he was reviewing. This book grossly distorts American history in many ways. First, it states the idea that the founding fathers of the U.S. were all devout Christians and that their Christianity motivated them to establish this republic. That's not really true. In reality, some of them, like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, were deists, believing in a God, but not in divine revelation. Their rebellion against the British king was a rejection of the concept of divine right of kings, which is taught in the Bible. Also, the book refers to manifest destiny as a God-given right of white people to spread across the North American continent and take over land from the uncivilized Indians. Yes, they actually use that outdated term in reference to Native Americans, and they give almost no details about Native Americans as a people aside from their fighting to keep their land, and thus being a threat to white settlers. The book also refers to the Civil War as a war by the Union or North to economically crush the Confederacy or South, but it consistently refers to states' rights as the issue and speaks less about slavery than I think appropriate. Without slavery, what rights were the Southern states really fighting for?
Holy crap. It's like the rights of my ancestors didn't matter, right?
So like Carla Jenkins, I think these books not only have an excessive pro-Christian bias, they are indeed racist in their tone. Next to take the podium is Simon Wilson, the science teacher. This science book I reviewed was even worse than I expected. The book was obviously written from a creationist perspective, but instead of strawman-type arguments and claims against the theory of evolution, there is actually no mention of evolution at all, or Darwin, or the controversies in modern biology resulting from the issues related to evolution. There are plenty of references to fossils, the distribution of animals and plants, their classification, and even references to DNA and other organic molecules, but without evolution to explain all the differences and similarities among organisms. There is no way to tie all those subjects together. No references to the age of the Earth or the universe are made, and the fossils are said to be the result of Noah's flood, which is total nonsense. The book even asserts that the Big Bang Theory is positive proof of the existence of God, which is not even a scientific statement at all, but a theological one. To put it bluntly, this book sucks. Science should be taught in such a way that the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth is presented. This book fails in that regard. No child using this book for reference would be properly prepared for a career as a scientist. Finally, Dr. Drake comes up to speak, carrying the health textbook he was asked to review. The most obvious failing of this book is in the section on the reproductive systems. The book asserts that abstinence is the most effective way to prevent pregnancies, which may indeed be true, but there's also no mention at all of various contraceptive methods that may be available. Like Simon Wilson, I am dismayed at these omissions. Also, there is an emphasis on how well designed the human body is, and thus such design is a proof of God's power. Again, a theological claim rather than a scientific fact. Homosexuality and transgenderism are mentioned, but only as perversions that go against God's plan for humanity, which are also theological rather than scientific statements. And if I may speak personally here, I deeply resent the claim by the Christian Way Academy owners that they were trying to re-establish a Christian culture here. Our town has never abandoned its Christian culture. We still celebrate holidays like Easter and Christmas, which are based on Christianity. And I myself am still a believer in Jesus as my Lord and Savior. That has never changed. What has changed is that I, and most others in this town, don't accept and promote bigotry against any non-Christians. We consider all religions and their followers equal under the law. Those who have a problem with that, keep in mind that Jesus himself taught that we must love thy neighbor as thyself. He never said, love thy fellow Jew or fellow Christian as thyself. He even spoke of a Samaritan as one's neighbor, and the Samaritans were a despised minority among the Jews, just as atheists and LGBT people in this town were despised by most of us a decade ago. And Jesus said nothing about what we all must believe, only about what we must do. I understood that even when I was a Baptist. And I certainly affirm deeds over creeds as a Christian who belongs to a Unitarian Universalist church. So those Christian Way Academy bigots can take their crap and shove it. Thank you!
So we really dodged a bullet, didn't we? Yes, we did. So after this, I will have no more dealings with your Uncle Paul. He may have been nice to you when you visited him, but those textbooks he is using to brainwash kids speak of his true nature. He can never be trusted. I understand. Let's go home.